Hi, everybody. It is the webinar on addiction under the auspices of the Super Happy Body course that's upcoming. And of course, I am Professor Johanna Sophia of Johanna's Raw Foods and Coaching. And I would love to have an interesting conversation. I'm doing a little bit of a presentation and then an interesting conversation about what other people, what you guys think of what addiction means and where in your life, and I'm certainly going to talk about my life briefly as well. You know, we all have addictions and what that means. What's the physicality of it? What's the emotional part of it? What's the habit of it or the patterning, as we call that, you know, behavioral patterning, etc. All of those things contribute to what we then call addiction and or obsessiveness, or, you know, there are again variations within that term. I mean, today we think addiction is just heroin or cocaine or sleeping pills, etc., you know, or alcohol, of course, but it is, I think, so much more than that. And even in those arenas, I'd love to sort of explore what's behind that. What's behind that? How does it express itself physically? And what's behind that in terms of what hole in our life does that fill? And maybe it's a natural drive. I mean, you could call hunger addiction, right? Because when you're really, really hungry, you will do all sorts of things to get something into your mouth to stay alive. It's a survival as well. So there are all these variations in the spectrum of addiction. So once again, I'm welcoming you all, even those of you who are watching this later. And I would like to encourage you to grapple with that concept of what that is. Let's start with, how does addiction express itself? How does it show up in our body? It's like an itch, the thought, an image, and of course the physical chemical addiction, the biophysical addiction shows up as physical itchiness, right? Like you want to like go like, oh, and I think we all know that moment where we have to shake something that is kind of haunting us, or that is driving us nuts, as we call it, right? Or that is not letting us get to sleep because it's just going around and around and around in our mind, and we can't find a way out of it. So a little bit about me, and I've always maintained in my life that I'm a non-addictive person. So I could be sitting, of course, where I grew up in Europe, you know, everybody was smoking galore, 2 packs, 3 packs a day is the norm. And, you know, it's good for you. It's for relaxation, and it's cool, and you sit there with your cigarette, and you know, that's how I grew up. So I occasionally could smoke a cigarette, but I would never have a craving for cigarettes. But then I would admit that the only thing I could get addicted to is sex, because the closeness, the lovemaking, the orgasm experience, etc. Now, is that something that is called an addiction, or is that just a natural drive? And where are those edges, you know, where the two meet, where we fall off the cliff of what's natural and good for us, and where it becomes a obsessive behavior? And of course, it's self-destructive behavior. Maybe that's one of the definitions, and you can chime in on that. You know, at which point does something like addiction to, of course, at the time we called it making love. We didn't even call it sex. You know, let's make love. But where is that point at which it is a good natural drive? And of course, it's also reproduction, and it's expression, it's intimacy, it's communication, and all of that. And where does it fall off that cliff, and it becomes an obsession, and you can't get anything else done because your mind just craves that feeling. And I think it made me aware that that is very similar to all the other addictions, probably. I would observe, for example, I had friends when in my short period of living in a commune, actually, as a very young girl, as a, of course, teenager, I would accompany one of my friends there to his heroin addicted friends, and they would all sit together, and there was this bonding in this self-indulgence, self-destructiveness that was fascinating to me. I mean, I had zero craving to join them, but the observation that there is an indulgence in addiction as well. You know, to go to, I mean, with heroin addiction, of course, it's that whole ceremony of burning the stuff or heating the stuff and then putting it into the syringe and then binding your arm and, you know, putting it into the vein and then, it's like this self-indulgent. At the time I said they're behaving like movie stars, indulging in being addicts. And it's, I don't know whether that sounds crazy, but there is an indulgence, I think, in that whole behavior and in that whole allowing oneself to be in it. I'm actually going to have a client of mine doing a 6-week intensive with me where every day I am going to be sure that they follow the protocol and even making some of the food for them, who wants to come out of food addiction as a replacement for cocaine addiction. So again, you know, when we only replace one with the other, we're not necessarily helping ourselves unless that other is really the healing modation. So tomorrow we're going to talk about chocolate. You know, some people say they're addicted to chocolate, and I could fall into that category because I make my raw chocolates. And is there a way to heal from addiction to destructive substances and behaviors, transitioning, replacing that with a constructive behavior? So that's the drive, the craving can become proactive, helpful to ourselves and others. And from that, I then also want to talk about how do we help others with addiction. And there's one more area of addiction that I do want to address, and that is what I said in the beginning, you know, which hole does the addiction fill? Where there is a hole in our sense of being, in our sense of purpose, in our sense of meaningful living, where there is a gap or a hole that the addiction glosses over or fills in one way or another. Does that make sense? So that we can also understand addictive threads in people and in ourselves where we're not fulfilling that which is maybe our mission or what we really want to do. And I'm sure, like in my case, if I want to go back to addiction to sexuality or intimacy, etc., I feel the addiction really only when there is no relationship in my life. So again, there's the whole of the intimate relationship that then brings forth this craving that becomes physical and could lead to, if I were a more addictive personality altogether, could lead to filling that in with drugs or other behaviors that would be self-destructive. So self-analysis, of course, is a beautiful thing that we also lose when we get too addicted, right? When we are in the addiction, we can maybe self-analyze in between, but it has such a grip on us that the analysis escapes us, which we would normally have. So yeah, what is that whole, and does that whole also have to do with a lack of purpose in our life, a lack of goal setting, where we really have the feeling that we are fulfilling our mission, we're being authentic, we're being recognized by others, we have that acknowledgement, that appreciation by others. And when that is missing, I think that also is contributing to that hole. Now, I want to ask you right away what other thoughts you have with all that I've just laid out there, and feel free to just throw in what comes up in your minds, with the word addiction and self-reflection around that, or observation of others. Do you want to chime in? Linda? You have to unmute yourself. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, no, I think everything you've said about addiction is spot on, and how when you are in the middle of it, you lose all perspective and tend to, you find yourself more in denial. Like, oh, that's not an addiction. I just really gravitate towards this, or you know what I mean? And you kind of go into self-denial mode. But I like your idea about, having a lack of purpose or lack of recognition, that those types of behaviors or the feeling of lack can lead you into some type of addiction where you're just trying to self-gratify and get that recognition, though it may be through sort of toxic behaviors.
Yeah. And in a way, I also felt that in those circles of where people sat together and shot heroin, in those old days, the suffering together gave that. And there's something else maybe I should have mentioned, that a lack of community is also part of it. A lack of sense of belonging, community, etc. Let me have your name, Mr. House, so that I can ask you. Unmute yourself for a minute.
My name is Wayne.
Wayne, that's right. I remember you, Wayne. And your last name is House, right? Wayne House. Mm-hmm. What comes to your mind? Do you want to say something or ask something?
I don't have much. I just came to listen.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And there's Ed Z and Melissa Klinkowski. Would you like to add something or pose a question so that we can look into it a little deeper?
I think Melissa contributed in the chat. She doesn't have a microphone on her computer.
Oh, and why am I not seeing that? Here it is. Yeah, that is very interesting, Melissa, and an interesting way of putting that. Yeah, I think we can be addicted to, I have some of that too. We can be addicted to being needy and being poor. And if we suddenly are not poor and not needy, then there's something taken away from us that belongs to our, not just personality, but also the whole, it's not my fault, society is just bad, or nobody loves me, that kind of thing. I fall into that too with regard to earning money. We all need to earn money to pay our bills. And then when we earn more than we need to pay our bills, we start feeling guilty. And that's the same thing. So and it comes along, Melissa, tell me if I'm wrong here. There comes a certain shame with suddenly having enough or more than others. And then we feel embarrassed or ashamed about that. So, and that again takes away the joy of living. But in the poverty, we also don't really fully have the joy of living, at least in my experience, because there's always this, I should do more, I should get more, I should have more. And then when we do have more, we start feeling guilty and falling back. That's a very interesting psychological cycle, Melissa. Yeah. 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 No, making lots of money, of course, does not solve everything, but it's not about a lot. It's about enjoying what we do have and being okay with being in this world the way it is right now, because we can't change the whatever capitalist system, at least not all at once. I'm working at that by joining a new financial system called Gradido.net. You should all look into it. And that's what we'll be teaching at Rossum Life University. That's my big project. So yeah, but it's a big task and it takes millions of us to create a new system in which we don't have that rich is bad, because historically rich have done a lot of bad, have done a lot of evil in the world. As you may know, I lived in a former colonized country in Zimbabwe just after it was freed itself in the early 80s, 1981. And there is this either you're rich and a dictator, or you're poor and a victim, right? So it's victor and victim as well. And to get out of that modality, is yet another. Find that middle avenue that is neither nor is not easy. And that's what we all need to work on. Authenticity helps us to be neither the exploiter nor the exploited, because those two form each like a caricature, really, of who we are. And we don't want to be a caricature of that. And it's interesting. And I mean, I've come across a few, not too many, super rich people in my life, Rothschild heirs and that kind of thing. And because I taught at Columbia and at Yale, I came across several students who came from those families. And it's interesting that there is shame and guilt and all of that mixed in with also hanging on for dear life to still keep being the richest, the bestest in all arenas. So, and happiness lies neither on one or the other side. So how do we get out of being addicted to being the victim, which actually in and of itself is a great description that I often discuss with my clients. So how do we get out of blaming everybody and everything for what we are or are not in our lives? And of course, for example, being a slave that you really didn't have much wiggle room to claim your own. So there are situations, of course, where we have very, very little leverage and very, very little ability to enjoy the life that we have. And still, of course, the Sojourner Truths prove that positioning wrong as well, right? Getting out no matter how and using our intelligence to create an avenue into a different world is always an option. So I want to put that out there. Those two things are very much also part of addiction, because addiction actually does turn us into victims, right? And then it's, yeah, we're the victim of, if it were food addiction, for example, not to go to the drugs because it's so obvious, right? But if we are in the food addiction, we are victims to advertisement, to food belief systems. You know, you need to have this to be strong. You need to eat a burger to be American. You need to, you know, all these preconceived ideas that become the excuses and also become the, well, it's not my fault because it's always in my face. So Wayne, what would you say are your addictions?
Food.
Food? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And are there certain foods that actually make you happy?
Sweet ones, I guess.
Sweet ones? Yeah. Yeah, of course, you know, I'm known to make cakes and brownies and all those kind of things. And here my approach is, let's fill those same behaviors with constructive content. So if you say, I crave a brownie, let's make that a raw vegan brownie. Let's make that a fruit sweetened brownie at least. Let's turn that into something that is just as satisfying but actually serves us. Oh, the other day I saw a recipe somewhere for somebody who made a kale brownie or something with, it was like greens were in the brownie. And of course there are bean brownies as well, right? Have you come across those? Yeah, made with black beans, I think, yeah. Of course, these are cooked, not raw, but I thought that was interesting. People have all sorts of curious ideas that break the ingredients that break the addiction by way of giving you the same thing that's good for you. And suddenly you are no longer the victim in it, and it's easier to get out of the craving. I mean, or turn the craving into a good craving. Can there be good cravings? I think there can. I certainly almost every day have something with raw cacao, so chocolate is on my agenda if it's an addiction. I even make chocolate burgers. No, it's beet chocolate burger. It's a beet burger, a raw food burger, beets and nuts and seeds and spices, and you know, with onions in it, etc. And then a little raw cacao thrown in, and it gives this mole-like flavor. If any of you have ever eaten Mexican food and you have that sauce called mole sauce, you're familiar, Wayne? I see you nodding. All right, Ed Z, we haven't heard from you. Would you be so kind to unmute yourself, or are you also not with a mic? Yeah, Melissa is talking about microgreens and sprouts, and of course all of those are good things, but when people are not familiar with those hypernutrients, it is difficult to switch to them. And I'm speaking now as a coach, and for Linda, who is becoming a coach, and for Wayne, who has an all-American diet, if I remember correctly, kind of, right, Wayne?
Primarily.
Yeah. So in order to get that to go into the right direction, we need to just fill those behaviors with the better choices of the similar kind, so that your addiction to those burgers, hot dogs, cheese melts, etc., becomes less destructive to your body. And of course, if we could add to that the microgreens, the superfoods. Actually, there is one superfood that I take sometimes that I highly recommend, and I think, Melissa, do you use Gary Null's superfood? I know that Melissa is a fan of Gary Null's, or a follower, and he has one too. I have not tried it, so I can't really talk about it, but I'm sure it's good. I use Dr. Richard Schulze's, and Wayne, you might want to look into that. It's a green powder superfood. It's very filling and satisfying, especially when taken in a fruit smoothie. That's what I do. And it provides all those nutrients that you're missing. That's why you have such a hard time walking, right? When you're walking, and that's why you have carry that extra weight that you don't get to work off, because you already feel too slow to run up the mountain like I just did a couple of hours ago. I have a little, I call it my mountain, but it's a hill. It's just 1 mile up, but it's very steep. So I really struggle to get up that steep hill and then 1 mile back down. So it's not much, but it's a good, heart pumper, because when you do it regularly, it really helps getting your functionality back. And in your case, you would just start walking. But the green nutrients that Melissa is talking about in the chat provide that extra ability to renew your cartilage, for example, in your knees and in your hips, so that you don't have pain in your joints and in your back. And of course, in our class, Wayne, and maybe this year you're ready to join it. It starts in a few days, next week actually at this time. You might want to put yourself through that and actually give your body a chance to rejuvenate itself enough so that you can then have 2-3 more decades that are very functional and happy. I forget, do you have grandchildren?
5.
There you go. They need you, Wayne. The best gift you can give to your grandchildren is being in their lives and being functional in their lives. Not just sitting back and like, okay, come on, grandchildren, you can sit on my lap, but actually going out and picking the berries in the woods and whatever. I don't remember in which state you are. Where are you?
Iowa.
Iowa, yeah. You got a lot of berries out there in the woods, no?
Say what?
You have berries in the woods, raspberries and...
Not much that I know of. I don't. Maybe, I don't know.
Uh-huh. So you don't go out there?
Not much, no.
Do you have a yard?
Unfortunately, so far.
Yeah.
I'm alone
Good.
now, so I'm trying to get rid of stuff so I can move to a warmer climate.
Okay. So you're looking to move to Florida or anywhere in the South?
My brother lives in Mesa, so that's kind of what I have in mind.
Where's Mason?
Arizona.
In Arizona, yeah. So there you have both mountain air and heat. It can get quite cold in Arizona, but depending on where you are.
Depends on where you're at.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was there, it got I was in wait, Flagstaff is in Arizona, right?
Yeah.
And Sedona. Yeah, I was there, Sedona, Flagstaff. It got so cold at night. And I was there with the kids, and we were like, it was hot in the day, and we just did not think twice. Went to sleep in our shorts and whatever t-shirts, and it got so cold. So yeah, that's what I remember. So yeah, you might want to really work on your body to make that fun moving to Arizona. Arizona is lovely when you can move.
Yeah.
Right? You don't just want to be sitting in a rocking chair for the rest of your years kind of thing. So yeah, type your email in the chat, Wayne, then I can send you some information on joining the class. Wait, what's first place, Melissa? Oh, I missed some. It's too much for me to read. I'm such a slow reader. Help me out, Linda. What about the first price is $650,000?
Melissa, it says she's starting a program doing, it says threshold testing, bicycle, swim, run, VO2 max. It's an Ironman World.
Ironman is the one I know. I'm familiar with that. Yeah. Whoa, Melissa, that is awesome. Okay, and there's Wayne House at mchsi.com. Okay, I just want to make sure that I have that. Is that an underscore between Wayne and House?
No, it's
or a dot? A dot.
Dot.
Okay, got it. Yeah, it's because I had to switch to my laptop from the big screen, so everything is tiny here. All right. Good. So addiction being part of our life and what it means and why it is hard to get out of it, but why it is also possible to get out of it is part of the training that we want to, is part of the teaching that we want to help people with. And of course, Melissa, that is awesome. And, kudos to you getting powerful. Melissa, are you familiar with Jesse Itzler and those guys that run like 100 miles in a piece? And I don't even know, you can't do all of that without going to the bathroom or something, But they do, yeah. You familiar with Jesse Itzler, Linda?
Yeah, well, I've heard, yeah.
Yeah. I'm familiar with him, although have I met him in person? I may have met him in person at one of my business coaches events. So, yeah. That is some tough stuff. Yeah, he used to do these retreats for people who wanted to run up a really steep hill, 10 times in a row, up and down and up and down. I guess, that's similar to what I'm doing, but even steeper, I think, and more speed. So, and he is 60 now, and he is still going strong. Another thing that also is incredibly helpful is the deep breathing. And, in my program, I also now use Wim Hof's deep breathing. And Wayne, you might look into that. Wim, it's W-I-M, and his last name is Hof, H-O-F. And it's this breathing method, and it's not just breathing like in yoga. it's breathing for so many counts, deep breathing, and then holding on the exhale, which I had never come across before. And then taking a deep breath in and holding again on the inhale. And once you let that go, it's weird, but every time I do it, there's this big smile on my face. I don't know what it is, but it must be some endorphin inducing rhythm that happens with this breathing that just makes you feel like elated. Ah! You know, it's crazy, but it works every time. And that too, Wayne, is something that we practice. So, and of course, I'm sure, Melissa, you've come across it because it also, many athletes do it. I mean, Wim Hof has become so famous now that actually they're making a movie about his life because he had this crazy life talking about addiction and other, brain dysfunction. His wife, and they had 4 kids, young kids, was schizophrenic and jumped out of the 8th floor. And then he was left with 4 young children and raised them by himself, and had to figure out how to physically and mentally and emotionally survive all of that. And that's how he developed the sitting in ice water and breathing deeply and became the Iceman. He had already been a kind of a mountaineer and a mountain guide. So, you know, that the physical exercise was already there, which helps. But I think especially for that endorphin production, things like deep breathing, and also what we'll be talking about tomorrow, the foods that have particularly endorphin producing elements in them, like cacao, and fruits in a way have that. Many fruits, sweet fruits, often the tropical fruits, have that elation ability, the ability to give you elation. I certainly, sitting on my porch in Zimbabwe and eating a whole, very, very ripe, juicy papaya directly from the tree, you know, there's just nothing like it. It's so satisfying. So that eating experience can also produce that feeling of satisfaction. What goodie is that you got there, Wayne?
Supplement.
It's supplements? What kind?
It's immune system support.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So you're helping your body a little bit to get over. But I always say, and this is a little harsh, but I always say one little pill cannot override all the other junk you put into your body all day long. So, I don't want to be mean here, but it's so true. You know, it's also of course the fact that we think we can go to the doctor and get a pill to fix something that is really then destroyed again and again by the food we put into our body. And it has always baffled me that we think that is possible, that there is a chemical that can fix what all the food we put into our body creates. You know, we put a pound of food or 2 pounds of food in a day into our body, and then we think that a microgram of chemical can fix what the food is doing. Yeah, most of the time that doesn't work. So unless it's a pill that makes you vomit or get diarrhea to kind of push all that stuff out. But switching out the destructive food with good food and still being allowed to eat all you want, Wayne, that's really what you want. You want to be able to eat as much as you feel like, stuff your face. I just had and I couldn't finish it because it's so filling, a cauliflower, I call it cauliflower mashed potatoes, but it's raw cauliflower and nuts and a little onion and spices, and there's a little bit of pear in there to give it a sweet edge. And then I made a gravy, a beet mushroom gravy, spicy because I like a little bit spicy, over it, and it's so good. Oh my God. And I made this big bowl full, and I thought, I'm really going to stuff myself. I couldn't finish it because when you get really nutritious food, Wayne, you can't eat that much. It's weird. Again and again, I come to that point where I just can't eat more. So I don't think I could get fat on the diet that I have. So when I see people struggle with overweight, I just so wish they would allow themselves to have that experience, who are suffering from their wheezing. They have all sorts of other problems because they're obese or severely overweight. And still, there's always that feeling that, I want to eat something more. I want to eat something more because the body is really craving the real nutrient. And maybe that's how we can round out the whole addiction question. So if addiction is trying to fill a void with something, then that void may also be created by missing nutrients. So, yeah, Linda, unmute yourself.
No, I was looking at Melissa's chat.
Yeah.
Respond.
Yeah. I do get addicted to being a perfectionist. Yeah, that's another. I didn't talk about that either or think about that, Melissa. That's great. Yes, people can be addicted to being perfectionists. And of course, you have that obsessive compulsive behavior is also a form of addiction, right? Where people have to wash their hands all the time. Or like I said in the beginning, I can't leave the house without my hair being perfect and my lipstick and everything is in place. And otherwise, I don't know, I die if somebody sees me like this. Yeah. Of course, mostly that's women, but some men have that too. Real food is the key, yes. Plant-based. And yeah, well, of course, if one wants to heal, no meat is certainly faster than low meat. But if you're already, if you're already training to be a super athlete, obviously you already have a very strong and healthy body, Melissa, right? Otherwise you wouldn't be trying to train for that. So yeah, you're certainly not dealing with obesity or overweight or arthritis. Is your joint pain arthritic, Wayne? No? No, it's just because when I see you move, it's very slow and like there's pain somewhere. So, but we'll talk about that separately. All right. So to close that out, the lack can also be physically a lack of nutrients so that we're craving something to fill that void and never reach the point of satisfaction. And my little cauliflower mash just gave me that point of total satisfaction. I was like, oh, so good. And I couldn't eat anymore. It was too much. So that's really where we want to be with our food and with our drinks. Yeah, of course, alcohol is another question that I don't know as much about, because again, I've never been attracted by getting drunk or by drinking a lot. But from observation, I can see that it is a similar craving to belong and to do what others do, and the flavor of the wine I can get, or the other drinks. And of course but one only has that when starting out or when not drinking much. When I was in entertainment, of course, I occasionally would drink a glass of wine, and I would actually feel the little buzz physically, where things feel a little numb and the brain goes a little bit bzzzt. But that goes away, I think, with habitual drinking. Or it gets harder and harder to get to that buzz, so that more and more needs to be consumed with alcohol. All right. I wanted to have an open Q&A. Does anybody have questions? Of course, I am inviting also to the Super Happy Body 12-month class. And Ed, we haven't heard from you. It looks like you're still listening. It would be nice to hear a peep from you. But of course, if you're shy and just want to listen in what this old lady has to say, that's fine with me too. All right. Questions?
Melissa has a question for you.
Yes. Mm-hmm. You said you have a question?
Melissa had a question in the chat for you.
Oh,
I don't want you to miss it.
Okay, thank you. Melissa, we can talk about that. The price is down from 8,000 to 5,000 for the whole year, but I've made some arrangements with some clients who've previously been clients. I'm thinking though, you need, if you really want to do this training, you need to get into it fast. So, but I will respond to you. Text me again or email me, Melissa, so that we can make an arrangement if dollars are still a big problem. So 5,000 for the year, that breaks down into 547. I think I have it. It's always a little bit more when you pay monthly. But I'm willing to make a deal with you, because we've been in communication before, and I know that it's a struggle to get the pricing right. And so talk to me. All right. Linda, you good?
I'm good. Yeah, no, I was interested to attend the class today, because I think we're seeing so much more going on with addiction with the whole COVID, when you brought up the isolation aspect, and people, because of that, I think they're turning to alcohol and other drugs and chemicals just to escape that feeling. And I know,
yes.
I have, alcoholism issues in my own family, and
Mm-hmm.
I see that. It's just like a numbing mechanism to kind of get through rough times. So, but it's,
Mm-hmm.
it's tough to watch, when you're not in it. I don't,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
can't relate to it, but you also can't, you can't help until they're ready. And
And that is sometimes the hardest thing, that we want so much to help, but we have not the ability to interfere kind of with people's karma when there's no opening in it for them to make that decision to allow you in, right? And sometimes that's the only decision needed, because then we can carefully introduce things. But when it's all closed, it's impossible to get in there. So, but I'm glad you're saying that, because we all have people in our lives, and we all have people in our lives whom we would love to help, but they're not ready, or they think they don't want to do it again because they've already tried 2 or 3 times, they've done 12 steps, or they've been to AA, but they can't, they can't maintain it. And then the disappointment in themselves is greater than wanting the risk to feel that again. To kind of, you already have been disappointed in yourself, and then, well, if I try this again, I already, like a woman was telling me day before yesterday on the phone, yeah, I would love to work with you, Johanna, you know I would, but I already know that I can't do it. I can't stick to things. And, so it's like the disappointment in her own inability to stick it through is more causing her more anxiety than her behavior or her sickness. So it's like, okay, if I get disappointed in me again, then I just get worse. So how to get over that hump is a whole other psychological thing. So sometimes one just has to say, when you're ready, I'm here, and say that again and again and again. And another thing, of course, is living the example and not discontinuing the contact. I have so many people, clients of mine, former clients, who've said, oh, no, I don't want anything to do with them because they're all this and that and the other. And I said, that's why it's so important to have something to do with them, so they can see how you get out of things, how you get a happier life, so that you can be an example and invite them in. So that's what we do. I mean, I've done it myself. I've said to my sister, I don't want your negativity in my life, and I'm not communicating with you anymore. And interestingly, in this COVID time, talking about that, she came. I mean, she lives in Europe, and to me and tells me that she understands what I'm doing, and we are the besties. So we started talking about everything and so forth, and it's such a good feeling when we manage to reconnect. Mm-hmm. Even if expectations don't need to be met, but often it is putting ourselves into their place, or revealing something of ourselves that we've experienced where we were disappointed in ourselves, and sometimes asking for their help is also helpful. So there are these it's not really reverse psychology, but something like that, modalities that help us connect. And therewith opening for them the little window into, oh, look, we can. I don't have to be. Because I think often, and you're so right, especially now in this COVID time, people who believe the whole story, of course, lock themselves up, and it's even harder to connect, right? And one has to use the phones. I mean, I don't really have too many of those experiences. But yeah, I mean, my sister is the best one because she just suddenly connected with me, and it was just like this great. Oh, it's so nice to connect. Are you close with your grandchildren, Wayne? No?
Oh, they don't live anywhere close.
Mm-hmm. So you don't go to visit with them or get on the phone with them or
Once in a while, but
on a FaceTime or, you know, whatever we do these days?
they're adults now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what's your dream for the next decade?
The pearly gates get open when I get there.
That's really all? You don't want to enjoy planet Earth a little bit more?
I've been around long enough.
How old are you?
7, 8.
78? That's nothing. You just have 10 years on me. That's not much.
It's a world that's around that bothers me so.
Yeah. But what interests you? I see you have an old computer sitting there, and do you futz around with things?
No, the number one thing I need to do is get rid of all this garbage so I can get the house on the market and get out of here.
Gotcha. Okay. And for that, you need to be feeling a little bit more fit. I'm sure that's why you're on here, because you want to get some pointers as to how to get out of feeling exhausted.
Well, I'm still trying to learn all the things that my wife did. Our whole half century together, if she did something better in our business, she did it. If I did something better, I did it. So now I got to do both.
Yeah.
And when she left the city office at Clayton, New Mexico to marry me, they had to hire 4 people to replace her.
Wow. Was she a wizard of?
Never forgot anything. And
amazing. There are people, you know, who don't forget anything, who can read a book and remember every page.
Yep.
That's amazing. Weren't you, do I remember, suddenly I'm remembering something, weren't you promoting a supplement or something?
Yeah, we're very active in the most important nutrition discovery in the last 25 years.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was going to help you take that to the next level, or at least make it a little more profitable, right? Yeah.
That's a lot of what I'm trying to do, is figure out how to do the right things at the right times instead of the wrong time.
Mm-hmm. And make that supplement a little more profitable.
A lot more, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to get in touch with you by email, and of course everybody is invited to come back tomorrow. We'll see what we can do tomorrow. I was tempted to actually do a workshop making chocolate mousse live on the webinar, but then I would have to send you all the ingredients before, so that or after, so that you could see how that is done. It's really very simple to make delicious chocolate dishes that are incredibly nutritious. Delicious and nutritious and fast. So we'll see who shows up tomorrow. It's always, like I said, it's always interesting who shows up, for which I had a couple of people write me that they're fascinated with the topic of addiction but can't make it today. So they're going to get the recording, but maybe we continue that into the chocolate tomorrow. So I wanted to talk about chocolate, and you've seen the list, right, of topics that we're going to talk about, including the finances, etc. Good. We're going to close it out for today, and I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow if you are on, and we're going to look into the joys in our sensual experiences. That's really why chocolate. All right. Linda, bye for now.
Thank you.
I'll see you very soon
Have a
in
great
the, in the real challenge class. But of course, you know, I'd be happy to have you here. And Melissa, what are you saying?
She'll be back tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay, great. See you tomorrow too, or read you. Yeah, my apologies. On the screen, it's really so hard for me to read. And I'm such a slow reader. So therefore, my apologies, Melissa. Tomorrow. Bye, everybody. Thanks for being here. Ciao.